if y'all watched the games that happened on Saturday, man, it was ugly in Death Valley. It was very, very ugly. Alabama rolled into Death Valley and just took that thing over. Brian Kelly getting his first loss at night. And we saw it coming. We said it would happen if LSU lost this game. The narratives, the storylines, the networks just running with this thought of like, well, Brian Kelly must not be the right guy. Brian Kelly, he must. I mean, we keep finding this situation, man, where Brian Kelly can't win the big game, or Brian Kelly doesn't have his team ready, and they had a bye week and a mobile quarterback lit them on fire. And I understand all that. That's all fair. But I'm telling you this right now. Brian Kelly will still win a national title at LSU. Make no mistake about it. The things that you're upset about with this season are totally valid. Totally valid. Lost the opener for the third year in a row. Nobody's telling you to stomach that and be okay with that. The defense, yet again, did not come to play. Something you've seen now in multiple big spots since Brian Kelly's got there. Not okay. Not okay to still have that issue. However, when you look at this season, I'm not telling you to be okay with mediocrity, but I would ask the question, like, was this ever supposed to be the year for LSU? Looking at what last year was going into this season, was this supposed to be the year where you went on and won a national title? You're saying, JD, we didn't want to win a national title. I mean, we did. We just wanted to make the college football playoff. Yeah, that's fair. But again, that was always kind of like the podium you were trying to stand on, was go win 10 football games. Your preseason win total, I believe, was somewhere at 9.5, depending on where you were looking. Last year, you had 3 first-round picks on your offense. They all left, including your Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. You also lost your offensive coordinator. You hit a complete reset on your defensive staff. I'm not telling you to be okay with it, but I am saying when you zoom out a little bit, this year, as frustrating as it is, and I'm not telling you that there's anything that qualifies, the lack of success this year, but you look at the practical parts of what went into this year, you can see why we are where we are. All right, and I'll say this too. I think for Brian Kelly, man, like all the reasons you hired him at LSU are still very much so intact. The whole thought process, the whole methodology of why Brian Kelly will work at LSU and why you thought he'd work at LSU, you brought in a coach that's won 70% of his games. And by the end of the year, he will have coached 400 football games, y'all. He's won 70% of those. And you brought him to a place where, quite frankly, lesser coaches have won national titles. And that's not me trying to dunk on Ed Orgeron or Les Miles, but like Brian Kelly has a stronger track record than both those dudes. And they won national titles. Why? Because of the recruiting fertility, because of the resources, because of the brand that LSU is, because of what you can do at a place like LSU with the resources. If you have the right coach, you can go win at a high level. And I get the game has changed with NIL and the portal and all those things, but like, are you telling me Brian Kelly over the course of the next year to 2 years isn't going to get that more dialed into? And look at what he's doing on the recruiting trail. He is, if things were to hold as they stand today on the On3 industry team recruiting rankings, he would have his third top 10 class in 3 years, right? So it's not like they're not going after the right players and getting better players. I think everything you hired him for is still very much so intact. Now, I think the thing you push back against is say, well, JD, yes, I hear you. That's cool. We'll drink the Kool-Aid next year. We'll circle the wagons, and we'll be fired up for LSU next season. But right now, just let us feel the pain of this. I hear you, but like we got to still have a heart-to-heart. We still have to look ahead to the future and look ahead to what Brian Kelly's doing right now. As much as you're frustrated about the problems at LSU, what I would say is you have the same problems. You don't have different problems. Like I can live in a house where I got to figure out a way to patch my roof every couple of months. If I got the electricity going out 1 month and the next month my hot water doesn't work and then the week after my plumbing's broken, like if we have different issues every single year, then I'm like, okay, we can't figure this out. Give me the same problem, give me enough time, I can work with that. I can figure out a way to eventually fix those problems. And y'all, it's not like Brian Kelly's staying stagnant. Defense sucked last year. He says, okay, new DC, new defensive staff. Let's hit the reset button a little bit. Also, cherry on top to this year, and I'm not trying to make excuses, but like, have to think Harold Perkins would have been helpful against Jalen Milroe. Food for thought. But again, I think he's doing the right things. We just haven't seen the ultimate reward from those things that he's putting into practice in Baton Rouge. And you're not excusing it, but again, you're telling me that long-term he won't still win a national title? I wouldn't agree. And the comp that I think is true for Brian Kelly is one we had at SEC Media Days that I still will stand by. Leo DiCaprio, man, for a long time, wasn't winning Oscars. It was like all people would talk about when his name came up. Yeah, Leo's great, but hasn't won an Oscar. Hasn't won an Oscar. Hasn't won an Oscar. That's kind of the same vibe that I think people are getting with Brian Kelly. Yeah, he's a good coach. Hey, I just said it a second ago. 70% of his games Over a 400-game career, he's won. Yeah, that's a good football coach. But nobody, I don't think, during that whole Oscar drought for Leonardo DiCaprio thought he wasn't ever going to win one. It was, for I think most people's opinions, a matter of time. I think that's Brian Kelly. And now, how did Leo DiCaprio win that Oscar? He had that one thing go right for him, had that one movie, right? Revenant. I think Bryce Underwood, the #1 quarterback in the class of 2025, #1 player in the class of 2025, currently committed to LSU, I think that's Brian Kelly's Revenant. And so it's probably going to take some time here for that all to look how it's supposed to look. If I'm Brian Kelly, man, the ideal situation that I think you'll find yourself in here, I think Garrett Nussmeier, based on what he's done this year, has shown like, hey, it might be advantageous for you to come back. Have another season. Cut down on those interceptions. Get another year in the same system under Joe Sloan. Go prove what you can do. Because, like, you're not going ahead of Shedeur or Cam Ward. If I'm Garrett Nussmeier, come back for another year, have a chance to be the #1 guy next year. I don't even know if he goes ahead of Quinn Ewers right now, to be frank with you. So the ideal situation is Garrett Nussmeier comes back, Bryce Underwood, your Revenant since for a year. Give him the keys the year after that. Hopefully he's all dialed into what college life is and college football is. At that point, then, you take off. So I'm not saying next year can't be the natty year, but I am saying Bryce Underwood and what Brian Kelly has done over the course of his career, paired with a place like LSU, with the resources, with the brand, with the recruiting. You can only do the right things for so long until you eventually have the output that you desire. And I think that's Brian Kelly, and I think that's LSU. So again, I'll say this loud and clear. Brian Kelly will still win a national title at LSU. And we'll go ahead and take that one to the bank. Want to make sure y'all know the Hard Count brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy to use. If you have been following us on this show, you've paid for some Christmas presents, all right? I don't think I'm allowed to say that you're going to change tax brackets or promise you that we're going to win. I think that's like actually the exact opposite of what I'm supposed to say. But I'll just say this. If you've been following us, you have made some money. So we'll make that clear. If you want to follow us, use code HARDCOUNT. $5 in lineups, just getting started. Well, $5, you'll probably find that between the couch cushions today. Gets you $50 in promo funds. So thank you for using that code. We get a chance to see who uses that code, and we get the report every month. And every month, y'all have been crushing it with that. So thank you. So code HARDCOUNT over at prizepicks.com. A good way to squeeze all the juice out of your college football Saturday.